My business right now has zero value, none. Nobody's going to buy it. It's not sellable. It's not really a business. It's just my job.
Is it fair to say that you're looking for something that you don't exchange your time for money?
Exactly.
Like you're looking for something other than a high-paying job.
That's right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded Christian businessmen who desire momentum in their business, their family, and their finances get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own view from the top. I'm so glad you're listening in today with us. We've got another special episode of The Forge. We'll get these guys in here in just a moment. But before we do, I want to let you know what we're going to be talking about today. So we've got a guest with us today. His name is David, and he's working on building a plan to either transition out of the law, he's a lawyer, so out of the law world entirely, or maybe convert that law job maybe into an actual we would call business. We're going to dive into that today. So maybe you as a listener today are thinking, man, I think I've got a job as a business. Or maybe sometimes you think, oh man, how do I do this better and build a business, right? Versus just feel like I have a high paying job. So if that's you, be sure to listen in today as we dive in. Let's get our hosts in today. We've got Big A with us today. We've got Brett Barnhart with us today. We've got Anthony Witt with us today, ready to tear it up on The Forge. Welcome, guys.
Man, we have a full slate today. I mean, we've got a whole host of hosts today. So good to see you guys. Wally, you doing good?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. We got some warmer weather right now here in Tennessee.
Yeah, life's good. It's pretty good. Oklahoma, how's the weather out there, Brett?
It's good. It's good. It sucked last week, but it's good this week.
Yeah. Anthony's right here with us, so we all three have got good weather, so it's good. Hey, I got to ask y'all a question real quick, and we won't take but a minute on this, but it was pretty interesting, and it created a lot of conversation around my dinner table recently. I went to a conference. A friend of mine was leading this conference, and I've known this guy about 25 years. I even look up to him. He's a mentor, a little older than me. And we got to talking about intimacy. And I was like, well, I don't know where this is going to begin with, but he's talking about intimacy. And he and his wife had this discussion. And he said he really got tired of going through the song and dance every night. You know, is this a night for intimacy or not? So he just decided to schedule it. He said, I'm just going to put it on the calendar. And this is the day. This is the night. This is for us. And, I'm like, I don't know how well Robin would receive that. And I thought it would be a worthy topic for a second with you guys. All of you guys have been married over 20 years. How would that go with your spouse?
Those crickets there for a second. I was like, who's going to grab this one? Let's go, Brett.
Nervous.
You bring it. What do you got, Brett?
Yeah, is she going to listen to this?
Oh, no.
No,
should she? I don't know. Maybe we should get her to listen to it.
Maybe, yeah. So, I don't know. I think I would have to be very careful in that situation. Obviously, we don't do that. Simply because if it doesn't happen, she's a perfectionist. And is there going to be an obligation or guilt around that, especially with two young kids in the house? Because a lot of things change each day. So, I don't know. I think that would actually take a little bit away from it simply because it's scheduled, rather than, I guess in the moment.
It's natural.
Yeah.
Anthony, what do you think?
I've got a lot of thoughts on this topic.
Actually, Anthony has like, how many kids do you have now? Anthony, 7?
10?
We scheduled it 7 times.
I was going to say.
No. I've got a lot of thoughts on this topic from a clinical side, but from a personal, like with clients, and I'd be glad to say that, but from a personal side, we don't schedule it. Like that's my disclosure is we don't schedule. Right. But what we have found, we went through a rough patch a couple months back. Roughest patch of our marriage, really. And we came out of that developing anticipation and fighting for the intimacy. So we don't necessarily put it on the calendar, but we might put it on the, hey, I got you tonight type calendar. And that develops intimacy throughout the day, you know, the flirting, if you will, or whatever. For us, that's increased dramatically if we have that. Now, as far as putting it on the calendar, I have seen couples or met with couples where if we can get them to put it on the calendar, they fight for that intimacy, which is an interesting concept. Like I'm with Brett, right? I got a bunch of young kids too. And sometimes it doesn't happen. We might have been planning for it all day long. It doesn't happen because of young kids. But if there's dry spells in that part of your life and you do start working on, let's at least get it scheduled. You can fight for it. Say, I'm going to, no, you can't fall asleep in my bed, even though you're crying because you hurt your finger. Because, and you might not say that to the little kid, but like, no, this is me and mom. Like, this is our, like,
say, have you seen my calendar?
Let me just,
It's not quite the same as kicking the
you share it with the kids.
Yeah.
Look at my calendar here. This is important.
Well,
Wally, what about
calendar.
you? What about you, Wally? Is this getting on your calendar?
Yeah. So we have target days.
Yeah.
So we don't have like on the calendar from 2 to 2:05. I'm just kidding. We don't we don't have on the calendar like actual days and times, but we've been married just over 30 years. So we, just like Brett was talking, man, it just resonated a lot in terms of like that song and dance, right? Of like, are we doing it? Are we not? Are we going to have this? Like,
right.
and like, it's, I think it's exhausting for me and it's exhausting for her. So we kind of came up with some target days. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but I think for both of us, having like a 1 to 2 day kind of place to be flirty and to intentionally create some moments around emotional connection, more intentional for me if I'm not paying attention. And so that, I think that all plays into it. So far, it's only been like maybe 3 months for us that we kind of set up these target dates, but so far so good.
Let me say real quick. I know we got to probably jump to David and everything. One of the things I found with my guys that are, they're like, I'm not spontaneous. I'm not spontaneous at all. We schedule, like I work with them to schedule their spontaneity.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife wants spontaneity and you're not giving it to her. Well, what if we just schedule that? She doesn't need to see where it was on the calendar. She doesn't even like, maybe every other Monday is flower day. It doesn't matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But by developing spontaneity, like, my scheduled guys are like, I can't do spontaneity. It drives me crazy. I just want to, whatever the case may be, but did schedule the spontaneity, which leads to the intimacy, if you will.
Hey, Big A, I got to ask you, that's really good, Anthony. I got to ask you one question before you transition us over to get David in here. You opened this segment up with something about you had a conversation around the dinner table. Like, did you approach this with Robin yet?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I
How'd that
straight
go?
up asked her. She started laughing. She goes, you're not putting anything on the calendar. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of didn't want to do that either, but I can see how it could take, some of the work out of it. It's like, okay, here we go. But she goes, that is insane. That is the craziest thing I have ever heard in my life. And so I stared laughing. Robin's from the old school.
That's not real. We're also different, right?
Yeah, it's not a real challenge for us anyway. It's not something that, we have to work. That's a great part of our marriage, and it's been really good. So I just was curious. I knew what her response was going to be before I asked her, but I asked her anyway. Hey, let's get into it today. The Forge, man, I am so excited to have Brett and Anthony with us today, Wally. This is going to be amazing. For those that have never heard The Forge, I think you're in for a treat. This is a really fun thing that we do, and I want to tell you a little bit more about it, and I want to tell you why we do it. In Iron Sharpens Iron, we do what's called Man in the Middle, and it's every single week. Guys come in and they present their problems, whether it's personal, professional, spiritual, whatever the situation that they're currently dealing with. We call that Man in the Middle. So they get their time, kind of the hot seat, and we do it in Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. Well, in this particular episode, though, we're going to be protecting the identity by masking the man in the middle, kind of distorting his voice just a little bit for confidentiality purposes. When you're in the mastermind, it really goes without saying the confidentiality is expected, and we honor that as other participants in the mastermind. But for this particular episode, we wanted to be respectful of our guest And we wanted you to have real data. We wanted you to really peer inside and see what he's dealing with. And so we are masking him and distorting his voice just a little bit. The reason for doing the Forge is to demonstrate the real need for trusted advisors in our lives. And you've heard us talk on countless episodes. Man, we've got to have people in our corner. We've got to have people around us that can point out the blind spots, the superpowers, the kryptonite. There is just so much value in having other trusted advisors in our life. And when you have other competent, unbiased professionals giving you their perspective, it might just provide you with that missing piece that could solve any major roadblock that you may be experiencing in your life. And so, just so you, the audience, know, each of us have been given a really detailed overview of David's situation. We've had a couple of days now to kind of process it, to look it over. We know exactly what it is that he's going through. But I do want you to know that none of this is scripted. None of it's pre-planned. We don't have questions already laid out for David. We're going to dive right into it and really find out from firsthand from David exactly what it is that he's dealing with. And I want to reiterate again, what we're trying to solve for is David wants to know, should he continue building his business like it is, just as a law professional, or does he need to convert it and get out of having a job, if you will, and create a real business in what we're doing? So we're excited today as we dive into this.
Okay, we ready, guys? Are we ready to get David in here?
Let's go.
All right, let's go.
Hey, David, man, I am so glad that you're here today, being our man in the middle. We couldn't be more excited. Thank you, first of all, for sharing all the information that you did. It must have took you an inordinate amount of time to put that together, man. I mean, like, you were detailed in giving us the information. So it's really, really helpful. And so we're going to dive in. We want to give you just a few minutes to kind of unpack a little bit of your backstory. I know you've done a lot of traveling, some things related to your marriage and your business, and then we'll jump in and start the man in the middle. But why don't you give us some context to your situation?
Absolutely. First, thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation we'll have. It took me longer to give you guys all this context than I thought it would be. It was actually very helpful for me to process it all and giving you this. So
I don't know, David.
that.
You say you're excited to be here. I got your email back yesterday. You're like, I'm a little scared. Not scared. You didn't use the word scared, but you're like, I'm a little nervous. Like, you're gonna do great today, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Well, and I'll say, and this is just to touch on that, to tell you, I mean, I know a lot of these guys. I mean, I've known many of you guys for 5 years, and still there's a hesitancy. And I think for most men, there's a hesitancy to be truly vulnerable, even with people that you know and trust and respect. So
David, why do you think that is? This is not really part of what we're doing, but why that hesitation? What is it that's going on inside of you that gives you that pause?
Well, I'll tell you what it is for me today, because I was actually discussing this with my wife last night, telling her I was going to do this and excited about it, but also very anxious about it.
Sure.
And part of it is, like, I'm coming to you guys. I want to celebrate the wins. There's a lot of really neat, good things happening in my life right now, and I want to celebrate those. But where I really need help, there's a lie that I'm fighting right now, and that is a lie of well, there's some fear. There's lies that I'm a failure in a lot of things. There's lies that I'm not good enough to do certain things. There's all sorts of head trash that I'm dealing with. And admitting that to myself is one thing, but being vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is what I'm wrestling through with other men that I respect, that are highly successful businessmen, in this case, is a hard thing for all of us to do. But what I've had to wrestle through is I know what's on the other side of this. I have hope and belief on what's on the other side of it. And the only way to get there is through this vulnerability, to wrestle through it, to get the wisdom and the insight. And so that's what I'm wrestling with myself on, some of that anxiety and doing just this.
I appreciate you pushing through. I think there's going to be great clarity on the other side of that conflict. And so thank you for pushing through. Give us a little insight. Give us kind of some historical data and tell us about your marriage and your family. And
so I've been practicing law for just over 16 years now. Been married 16 years, just over 16 years. Got married my first year of law practice. And went through, when I first got out of law school, I was at a big firm, large firm, did commercial transaction work, which is the type of work I've done since then, doing a lot of commercial real estate, and was at a firm that the big firm it works for a lot of people. For me, one of my core values is freedom, adventure, creativity, some things like that. And it just was not a great place for me to express those in my personal life or really professional life. So I left that big firm after 5 years, went to a mid-sized firm, which was kind of a stepping stone for me. And then about 3.5 years after that, went out with a couple of partners in my current law practice. That's evolved into my law firm now, which is owned 100% by me. And I've got a couple other attorneys that work for me, paralegal. And that's where I'm sitting today as far as just a quick transition on my law practice. Still do commercial transaction work. My marriage and family, I'm married, got 5 kids, not quite as many as Anthony, but we're almost there. I'm close.
Still working on
it. That's right. Always working on it.
There's still time. Always working on it. Yeah, you should put it on the calendar.
Schedule it. Put it on the calendar.
Working on it.
Just a total side note, your number 6 and number 7 came for us right about the gap you have in your kids. So, you know.
Whew, I don't know. It's a lot. But about 6 years ago, I was a couple of years into my own law practice, had not taken a vacation or time off in years, not even a day, had not put an out of office reply on my email at all in almost 3 years. And my wife and I we were between houses, we're just stir crazy, and we needed to get out and do something. We, on a whim, and I mean, very much a whimsical thought, idea, not planned, bought an RV. I flew to Ohio to pick up a diesel excursion, loaded our 4 kids at the time in it, and we took off for a month through Florida. I worked remotely, and everything went wrong. It was miserable and amazing at the same time. So much freedom, so much adventure. It just really spoke to a lot of core values of who I am, who my wife is as well. We very much aligned in a lot of that. And it was very good. So that kicked off about 5.5 years of full-time RV living. We just decided not to buy a house. We've traveled all over the U.S. It was amazing in so many ways, and again, awful in so many ways. As you can imagine, we had our fifth child while we were traveling. We came home, had our 5th child, and hit the road when that one was 6 weeks old. And man, it's been a wild ride. It fed a whole lot of the adventure in me and my wife. We're both very much adventurous, love doing outdoors, so many creative things. It was amazing. We love family time. My wife and I enjoy each other. We enjoy our company. We're best of friends in so many ways. But it also, the living of that life intensifies everything too. It's an intensifier. If you have a good marriage, it's going to make it great. If you got a rough marriage, it's going to make it worse. If there are issues in the marriage, it's going to intensify and crack them. And that's sort of what happened, I think, for us. After 5.5 years, a lot of friction was happening, both in our marriage, in me personally, and my faith journey, and my wife and some of her faith journey. My business, friction was happening, and I can touch on some of that as well in a bit. So after 5.5 years, we got off the road. We've been off the road almost a year, bought a house, and we've been trying to navigate that. That transition's been challenging. But in that, about a year ago, I went through a real big restoration. Last year was my theme for last year was a year of restoration. And there was a massive restoration in my life of putting the Lord back as my first love. For me, I had allowed my wife to become my first love. And that sounds wonderful and noble and great and honorable, right? But it's not ideal. It's not the way the Lord created it. And I had looked to her for my one true source of happiness, my one true source of contentment, my one true source of validation for everything. And in turn, she had done the same to me, but for different needs that she had. So I went through a big transition a year ago of putting the Lord back first in my life, but then I didn't know what to do with my wife. If she's not first, she can't be nothing, but where does she fit? And that's been a big transition for us. She's been going through a big faith journey as well and understanding a lot of her own stuff and story. But just the past month, if we were doing this man in the middle just to talk about my wins, I don't want to talk to you about my marriage because the last 4 to 6 weeks have been just astronomical, amazing moments in my marriage. We're not where we're going to be, but it's been amazing. But for the first time, I feel like that is in such a right place or is headed in a right place that I can now start working on some of the other things that should come behind it. A friend of mine, actually in ISI with me, equated this, as I was wrestling through some of this, he equated it to he said, do you remember in high school math doing the order of operation for a math problem? He said, you can have all the same numbers, but if you do them out of the wrong order, the end result is not correct. It's not what it should be. So I'm working on the right order of operation.
David, before we get too far removed from this, because a lot of listeners and even myself are curious, what's transitioned over the past 4 to 6 weeks that's allowed this to be even more amazing?
Yeah, I want to know what those ingredients are. Yeah.
Yeah, what are some of those steps? What are some of the things that y'all have done? Because there's a lot of listeners out there right now that are in the same situation, same scenario that you're going through, and maybe they can glean from some of the things that y'all have done good.
The first I would tell you is you can't do it alone. My wife and I are both getting help, professional help and marriage counseling. We're doing marriage counseling. We're each doing individual counseling, both with believers. I think that's a really important thing because there's a spiritual aspect to everything we do. But for
all
me,
independent, or do y'all collectively go? Y'all go together?
I have a separate counselor I meet with.
Okay.
She has a counselor she meets with,
Okay.
and then we have a counselor we meet with together.
Okay, good.
So it's been really good, and honestly, our marriage counseling we thought was going to be the help, the real help we need, and it's been very good. But we've got a great marriage counselor, and he's really helped us understand the way to a great marriage is for each of you to deal with your stuff. And so we've actually started spacing out our marriage counseling so we can deal with our individual stuff. And it's been revolutionary for us. The one thing I would say if folks are going through that kind of stuff, it's not instant. It's just not. It takes time and consistency, but keep showing up. And my wife and I are encouraging each other to keep showing up, keep going. And the light bulbs are just finally going off after months and months of that. So that's been a big kicker for us. The other, I would tell you, the biggest light bulb, honestly, Big A, that's happened is when we both finally put the Lord first for us separately. We at times one of us would put the other first and the other's just berating and fighting. Mm-hmm. But when we both finally let the Lord be the first love of our life, it's just amazing. It's amazing.
Levels the playing field, doesn't it?
It does.
Right?
And it just puts in a right position. Mm-hmm. It's a right hierarchy of where things should be. So that's been, again, I'd love to take an hour and a half and talk about wins that are happening because I'm just so dang excited about that. And it's been such hard work for a year for us to get to where we are. And that's just been a really good thing.
That's good. Well, we'll invite you back and share all the wins. Today, we're going to dive down into the weeds, though. So give us a little more context as it relates to the business and some of your desires.
When I transitioned to a mid-sized firm, when I left that mid-sized firm, I was doing commercial transaction work. I actually left that firm to do a technology startup and was practicing law on the side. I knew then I was wanting to potentially get out of law practice, or had a deep desire to get out of law practice. The law is a jealous mistress, is what they say sometimes. And it's just an intensity that I was ready to transition away from. There are aspects of law that I love. I'm a business guy. I went to law school not to practice law, but to get back into business. I love business ideas. I love concepts. I love structuring things. That's what I love. And I've developed skills that I think have really helped clients blow up their businesses, both from a legal service perspective, but also just more of a business consultant side of things. So I wanted to transition that into my own ventures. That tech startup crashed and burned. I was a small player in it, but it went real south, and there was a lot of baggage that came with that, to be honest. A lot of wounds and scars and lies that I dealt with of failure related to that it took me a long time to kind of get over. So when that crashed, I just transitioned into law practice. I had to put food on the table. So that's what I've done. It's what I've been doing now for 7 years since that crashed. I have never had a website. I have never done marketing. I have never done anything to go build my law practice other than word of mouth and good service. And I have done well with a very good high-paying job. I get paid well when I want to pursue that, and folks will continue to use me for that service. But I knew 4 years ago that I was at an ISI event, live event, and I was listening to guys talk about these business concepts, right, of this, that, whatever. Some of you guys were probably there presenting on it. And I thought, man, that just doesn't apply to law. It doesn't apply to us. Like, we're a whole different sector. We're a unicorn. It doesn't apply to us. And I remember the Lord asking me, he said, would you at least consider the possibility that all those business concepts could apply to law practice? I said, okay, I'll consider the possibility. I hired a business coach, and with my law partner at the time, I cast a vision for what we could go create as a business for my law practice. And I hit the ground running, full speed ahead, 100 miles an hour. My partner was in agreement, but not fully. He just never was on board. Ultimately, after almost 3 years of kind of shoving it, pushing a rope uphill, he and I split amicably. He's going one direction, I'm going another. And it just took the wind out of my sails. Just crushed me in a lot of ways, because the model was not working. A lot of things were just messed up on it. Again, the effort was there. The model was broken to a degree of what I was trying to build. I was trying to build something that was more missional than income producing. It was building a firm that could be a place for me 10 years ago when I wanted to get out of big law. So I built a platform for other people to come join it, but it doesn't really create income for me. It's just an opportunity for other people to have good paying jobs like I have a good paying job. So that was disheartening for me to a degree. And I've just gotten back to, I'm just working a job today. I've looked at trying to create opportunities to maybe just push the law off and pursue a business venture of some sort. I've had some successful real estate investments. Real estate's something I know. Or do I take the law firm, completely revamp it into a better model, and go create something that's more of a business and not just a job for me, to where I can work on the business, not in the business. So I'm wrestling through that a little bit. I'm ready to get out of just the grind. I work hard. I don't mind working hard. I love working hard. But
So is it fair to say that you're looking for something that you don't exchange your time for money?
Exactly.
Like you're looking for something other than a high paying job.
That's right.
Yeah. Anthony, Brett, Wally, any of y'all got any clarifying questions you want to probe on anything that he said thus far?
I want to go back 5 years. How did we get here today? I just get a sense of like that whole traveling was running from something, right?
Mhm.
And what was that traveling replacing? It's like if I just stay busy doing this, it's like the do have be and the be have do, right? If I do, then I'll have, and then I'll be this guy, and I don't know. Do you feel like that?
Absolutely.
Well, so what was you running? What were you running from?
So I think there were two different aspects or two different, I guess, channels I was running from. One is on the personal, spiritual side of things.
Yeah.
There was definitely a lot I was running from there. I do think adventure is a core part of who I am. So that I was running to things that I love and I'm familiar with. But there were a lot of things I was running from. I think on the personal side there was stuff, but also on the business side. I was 2 years out of a failed business and was making money through my law practice and thought, let's just get the heck out of here and go. I'll be honest, Brett, I think I halfway hoped I was going to meet somebody at some place that said, we need you to help run this business, to build this business. I signed the dotted line that day. That's a part of, I think, internally, not consciously, but subconsciously, something I was hoping for.
Yeah. So I just think about that and I think, okay, moving forward in the future, and obviously getting yourself back in that, you didn't take a vacation. You said you never had a vacation. And we always say in ISI, isolation's the enemy. You were isolated from the world, right? Mm-hmm. So then you just flipped the switch and went 100% the other direction. And then you got fulfilled. You went through all the stuff. You and your wife are in a great position, but no fulfillment in the business. Mm-hmm. And so around the law side of things, there's a part of me, it's like, well, it's over, but then you just put that option out there to continue to build that business. So is it really over? Are you done with law or are you not?
I think I will always have a legal bent towards anything I do. And so that aspect of what I do that I love to do, I'll always do. What I'm torn with.
What is that aspect exactly of your work and what you enjoy doing about the law? Like what are those parts and pieces?
So I'm a creative. My wife's artistically creative. I'm a creative thinker, an outside of the box thinker to find business deals. I love structuring deals. I have a term I use for myself. I call myself a deal junkie because sometimes it's an addiction. Like it's a problem. I wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about it. But that's what I love that I get to do with clients is whiteboard out ideas and structures and solutions to problems. And that's a lot of fun for me. When I get into the grind of all of the documentation, all of the details that comes into play with my law practice, it's very draining and suffocating for me.
So you're a creator, developer.
Yeah. What's your working genius?
Working genius from, what do you mean?
Have you taken that assessment?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I've heard about it, but I haven't done it.
I think something along those lines could be extremely helpful for you because I look at you. So I've got a lawyer in my group. We talk law all the time. And I would argue that, yeah, it does apply to law because I've watched them apply it. The business stuff that you were talking about earlier that you're like, I got to try to figure out how to apply this. But one of the things I'm hearing from a business side is I'm hearing the solution, and maybe I'm missing it, which happens all the time. I'm hearing the solution being another time for money, which is switching over from law to consulting. And I know that's very vanilla right now. That's the language we're using. But a move to consulting is still time for money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. And I've actually done some business consulting. I've had a couple of, I've got a consulting company that I keep off to the side that I've used a few times for different projects and clients that are outside of just legal services. And I enjoy that. I love the consulting side of things, but it's still time for money. I was describing, so I had, my father's a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer. My brother inherited my dad's business. And it's I describe what I do as trying to figure out a way to put a square peg in a round hole. What my brother's practice is all he does all day long is put square pegs in square holes. It's the most boring thing I can think of. But man, it is printing money. It is printing money. And there's an aspect of what I have figured out about myself is while I love the creative part of what I do professionally, it has not created the freedom that I desire from my time. And there are other things I can do.
Is that because of focus? So my lawyer friend has a saying that goes like this: business is boring and boring is profitable. He's got it so much so that his employees actually say when they're doing some of the legal monotony. I'm obviously not a lawyer. I don't know what that legal monotony is, but like he's like, literally, I heard my employee sitting at her desk saying it over. She was like doing some type of filings over and over again. And that staying on track, if you will, not getting chased, has allowed for that profitability.
Mm-hmm.
And now he can do whatever he wants. Or, he has the ability actually to switch.
David, what's keeping you from turning your law job into a business? Do you know how? Do you know what to do fundamentally to make this a business?
I've got thoughts and ideas around it, yes. But what my job is people hire my mind. And I can't, I've got to switch my mind from, I can't automate my mind. And I can't automate the way I think. And that's what people hire me for, is the way I think and the way my mind works. But
David, I've got a friend of mine that's a chiropractor, and I go to him because he adjusts me, right? Okay, it's not his mind, it's his ability. And he recently went to a model that he hired more chiropractors. He quit practicing. He's got the vision. He's working on the business. He's recently franchised those and sold the franchise recently, and now he's retired in Florida, right? And it's the same principle for you. Like, they're hiring you for your mind, but if you're putting together competent, capable people, building a structure that they can still get those services, just not from you personally, is that what you desire? Or are you desiring to get out of this altogether? I think was an earlier question Brett had. And are you finished with law, or do you want to stay in this lane that you're familiar with and create a business, and maybe you just need some assistance in how to create the business?
I really think I should. My quickest way, not even just my quickest way, but I feel like I should go build this as a business.
Why don't you?
Maybe I don't know how. And my focus, I mean, to Anthony's, my focus has not been on this.
How come you should?
Feel like
I should do this.
It's a great opportunity. It's the one right in front of me that I could go do. It's going to cause a massive shift in my mindset, I know, and that's a lot of hard work.
Put something else in front of you. Is that a should? If we take the things in front of you. If we put something else, you said it's right in front of me. Like, I'm trying to use your language on purpose here.
Yeah.
If we put something else right in front of you, is that now the thing you should do?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. So why is this something you should do?
Maybe I feel a sense of obligation to the folks that are already here and to clients.
The folks or the family?
My family
yeah, the identity and history of who you are.
There's a sense of that.
Your brother.
I don't think as much about my dad and my brother because I'm so far separated from them. There's a massive level of separation there that we don't even operate in the same world, even though we're in law, but we don't operate in the same world. I don't feel a sense of obligation there at all. But maybe there's a sense of wanting to redeem what I've not been able to accomplish here. that may be part of it.
So prove a point that you can build it,
Maybe
that it can be successful. Is there happiness on the other side of that?
From just proving a point?
Yeah. Say we spend the next 3 years building this out and you have 10 lawyers, you're running in the organization, you have a COO that's running all the lawyers, and you've built a business.
I think there's a sense of satisfaction and pride that can come from it, like being proud of building something.
Yeah. And then are you happy, or are you looking for something else to run to for happiness and freedom and travel and time?
I think what I want to create is something that gives me that freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, that's one of my core values and my goals is I want freedom.
So I've been in it 20 years, let's just say 20 years. And I just remember times throughout building this that it's like, if I can just get here, I'll just have freedom. And I'm still an employee to a customer, if you will. It's always going to be. I get so frustrated with people sometimes, and Aaron's like, well, no matter what you go do, you're going to have to deal with people, right? So I don't know, like I guess to go a little bit deeper, if you could wake up tomorrow and do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? What would tomorrow look like?
Professionally or just personally, where would I go?
All of it. All of it. It all this stems back to freedom for your family, right?
So can I
not
ask
having
this
a job.
just slightly different? Because here's Brett. You're doing a fantastic job being a therapist today. I love it. Let me just twist that question just slightly and ask it this way. If you woke up tomorrow and all your problems were gone, what would it look like? And I use the word problems on purpose.
Yeah.
Because it's a perception that you have, whether they are or not. I don't really care.
Yeah. I love getting to serve people and help people.
So what would it look like tomorrow morning, whatever the day is tomorrow? I don't know why I looked at my fake watch, but I did. What's tomorrow look like?
I'd love to continue to have some of the conversations I had this morning with clients to talk about their problems. Do what?
What type of clients were those?
Clients that are having issues with partnerships, trying to figure out what options they have, how can they structure it, how can they do this deal, how can they make it work. I love those conversations. I love them. If money were not an issue, because that's my, if you want me to define a problem for me right now, it's dollars. If that were not a motivating factor or an aspect of this, that's what I would love to do.
So what's the problem
with
what
with
you're
my
doing?
family and my wife?
Then what's the problem with what you're doing?
I haven't built a model that's financially freeing.
So what does that mean? Let's drill into that. What's financially freeing to you? What does that mean? Define that.
I love in my real estate business where I'm making money without just my time. That's freeing for me. I would love to have a structure in my law practice where I'm making money and it's creating financial freedom even when I'm not billing an hour, burning a clock to bill a client. So I also love another aspect of when I built my law firm, I set a mission statement of to be a virtual law firm that empowers entrepreneurially minded lawyers to live life on their terms. That was my mission. And I love that. I love being able to provide an avenue for other lawyers to live a life of freedom that they want.
Yeah. Okay, so we keep going around, so I'm going to land the plane a little bit and throw something out there at you. You continue to build this business. You find somebody in operations. I have heard nothing but great things about you and your services. You're a great salesman. You're probably great at talking to people. I'm assuming compared to the lawyers I deal with, you're not as detailed in getting into the details, and it's probably because you don't like it. So you build this business because it can be a cash cow for you. And similar to what I'm doing over the next 20 years is building a commercial portfolio. because I'm trying to find that financial freedom 20 years from today. And I've built back from what does 20 years look like? What do I want in 20 years? And then I've just built that into play of what I have to do year over year over year to get to that point. But I can't do that without the existing business that I have now, because you can't build that real estate portfolio and be putting 20% down on all these real estate properties, right? And you can continue to get to do what you do, and then you bring somebody else in, bring some lawyers in to deal with the day-to-day details, get you an operations guy, and you just go out and sell and be David that I know, that I love to talk to, that you can sell all of this business and push it over to these people that just want to read that stuff all day, every day, and live in what you get to do and what you get to do best. So that's my thoughts to start moving this in a direction to get you clarity today. I don't know what any other thoughts or how
David, is it fair to do, can you do what Brett just described? Can you be the quote face of the organization with administrative help or paralegals that can do the task, that can fill in the blanks, do the details? You're meeting, you're strategizing, you're helping them solve the problem. It still doesn't totally give you a business. You're still exchanging your time for money. Even at that, you're doing that. Am I hearing you say you're willing to do that? Because you said you'd love to do that. Do you want to at least do that aspect of a business?
That aspect, I've never called myself a sales marketing guy, but I am. And that's fun for me.
You're well spoken.
I am. Yeah.
So you're willing to do that, though. So what I'm saying is, do you want to be completely hands off? You don't do anything except cast a vision, orchestrate the business, get the right people in, or are you willing to be that? It sounds you really lit up when you started talking about strategizing, solving problems.
Yeah,
you want to do that aspect of the business.
I enjoy that. Yes, that aspect of the business I enjoy, and so I would
sounds like
love
what
to
you don't
continue
enjoy is all the
doing that.
details.
That's right.
Right. I don't enjoy that either. We've got a team and they do all those things because I can't stand them either.
Yep.
And so, but I enjoy doing similar to what you're doing. So is it safe for us to go down that path?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Is that what lights you up? If that's what makes you tick?
Yeah, those aspects of what I do light me up and get me so excited.
Okay. Okay, good.
Do you like real estate?
I love real estate.
So do you have to practice in a certain area of law? Like wherever, is there certain things that you go to school for as a lawyer?
No, I can do anything.
So why don't you build a business around real estate?
A law firm around real estate, you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, that's about 50 to 60% of what I do. We're a title company. That is one aspect of my law practice that isn't fully automated, but I'm not far off from that. Paralegal handles 85% of it.
Yeah.
And I could go build that out pretty easily. Now, if I would focus on it, that's an aspect I could go build out even more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
David, we're telling you suggestions and ideas. What is the ideal business for you? Like, what does it look like? Back to Anthony's question.
Can I try to stab at that real quick before he answers? I believe that you need to, based on what I have now and the information we've talked about in the past, I believe whatever business you do, quote unquote, do, start, be hired for, whatever the case may be, needs to have a component of creativity and space for you to be a squirrel, is the way that I word it. We can confine that squirrel to a set of rails, but we don't confine the squirrel to where the creativity doesn't happen, because that's your magic. And if that's your magic, we need to build something that allows you to do your magic, which in my opinion, very much so can be the law firm, but you get to be the squirrel of the law firm, right? I actually thought about it. I thought, you know what I think needs to happen? I think that there's this company, it's a law firm down in Mississippi or down in wherever the heck you are in this country, that actually needs to hire this guy named David that I know to be their vision guy, to be their cat. Like, you need to hire yourself for your company. Like, and I don't know if the finances be out the window for that part, but like, that's the type of thing that needs to happen. So that you can be that guy, like that's your role and that's your place. Because I'm looking at this and saying, I don't think it has anything to do with law. If it does, there's a lot deeper stuff that we really haven't hit yet. It's very possible. You talked about fear and different things at the beginning. But I think if we figure out how to let you live into your skill set, I actually think law can be that vehicle.
How many lawyers out
to be.
there own their own business that just wish they had a David in their business to go out and sell business so they could just sit back and do paperwork?
No, I literally just got off the phone with my lawyer. I'm selling a piece of property. I have to use him. He's the only one in the county. Like, man, I wish there was 5. I actually really like the guy. But like the other day, somebody got to him before me and I had to go with the lawyer way far away that didn't know. So I'm like, go pick those guys up.
So David, I'm gonna ask you a question, and this kind of points back to me. Do you have tenacity? Would you say that you have tenacity?
I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I would say I do too. So what's that test you said, Anthony, a while ago?
Working Genius.
Working Genius.
I'm not let's go find the people that are the experts.
So
let's use their information. Working Genius. It's great as far as helping that work.
Yeah. So I did that and it come back and said, I don't have tenacity. And it, to be honest with you, it kind of pissed me off because it's like, I'll do anything. Like, let's go. And it defined it as tenacity to carry all the way through what I started. So if you were to start this, are you well at carrying it all the way to the end? Or at some point throughout the process, it falls off the wayside? And what point is that? And I'm great at selling it. I'm great at getting it in. But when it comes to maintaining it and keeping it in a good state and taking care of that customer, I'm not good at that. I'm like, I don't have tenacity to carry that. I have tenacity to go get it, but I don't have it to carry it all the way through to the end. And I had to deal with that. And I had to say, okay, well, all these things need to go. So I would ask myself and kind of do a self-evaluation of that and remove those things and bring somebody else in to deal with that and do what you do and what you love. My guess is people and relationship. And I just picture you on social media or YouTube teaching people about law or real estate. And it just floods all these people in. And you've got stacks of lawyers to having to deal with all this stuff in real estate law or whatever that is, because you're very well spoken. And if you're just sitting in dealing with paperwork and all this day in and day out, I think you're missing maybe a gift that God has put in you to reach people. So
I would agree with you 100% on that, Brett. I'm really struggling with how to transition to that.
So, okay. So similar to me, I will tell you, you fighting and trying to deal with those people will be a mistake. You need somebody that loves operations that will deal with that. Kevin can speak to it because Kevin's very, very good at operations to deal with those people and help carry that through, right? He has that tenacity to be detailed. All I can tell you is go find that guy because that's what I'm having to do.
Kind of layering on top of what Brett and Anthony are both talking about. So I'm listening to you talk and share and looking back through some of the context that you gave us. I think there's this idea that if you can, kind of what Brett was talking about, if you can look ahead 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and don't necessarily identify like the tactics of the business per se, but you've got your core values, which I applaud you for, by the way. A lot of people don't have them. So the fact that you have them, you've already got guideposts, you've already started to use them. And for the listeners out there, you guys listening, like we've heard David say multiple times, this is a core value that guides me. And imagine, right, how confused and frustrated he would be if he didn't have those to even begin this process. So kudos to you, way to go on that. But if you take your values and you take the things that are important to you and you define you mentioned freedom as one of those. So like, what does that look like in actuality? Like, what are you doing with your time in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Like just pick one. Even if it's 5 years, doesn't really matter. Just pick one. what does it look like? Like, what is your schedule? What does an ideal schedule for you look like? Right? Like, take the economic side and the tactics of the business out of it for a second and just kind of define those stuff, build that out for yourself for what that looks like along with your other core values. And then if you begin to like think that through in terms of, so you've got your core values, you've got kind of your ideal, not schedule, but you've kind of identified what it is you want to do with your talents and abilities and things you really enjoy. Okay. And then look at like, what are your assets? And I don't necessarily mean like money in your bank account. That may be an asset that's helpful to you, right? When you go to make decisions. Okay. But look at your assets in terms of your skills, your abilities, your relationships, your connections. Maybe it's the business that you have. What is an asset there? Are there certain aspects to your assets that you have, your resources that maybe maybe there's unique parts of them. Maybe there's not, but at least look at them. Maybe there's a team member you have that has a special skill or ability, or there's some type of leverage, right? That you are going to be able to uncover or define, and then start looking at, okay, this is where I want to go. This is how much money I need. You've done that for the next 5 years, right? This is compensation you want for yourself, or passive income or investment income for the year because you've like, okay, really want to go the real estate route, investing in that and building that. So I need X dollars to live on, to raise my family. Plus I need X dollars to put into that to be able to start building that. So if you look at that and you start backing that up, now you can start making good decisions for yourself and how you actually design your business to serve you. And that may look like I don't know what hours are for a lawyer, but that may look like 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week, 30, I don't know. How many hours a week that like you get to be billable at a very high demanding rate, I would assume, in your role and your abilities. But then and that's important, especially in the beginning, right? Here's the thing. This is what I find interesting. You've been doing this a long time, but this is kind of like a reinvention of yourself, right? You're at the beginning. If you think about it, like you're kind of starting over, right? So you've got some resources. You have your office. You've got some team members, but really, you said what, a year or two ago, you kind of parted ways with your current partner, and you kind of started reinventing yourself again, right? And that's that journey that you're on, and you kind of put that on pause this last year from a business perspective to work on some things personally, and now you're starting to pick it up. So asking the question, I think today is smart to be able to say, okay, as I go forward, how do I build something that is going to help me gain those things that are important to me in my core values? And you can't do that unless you know what that is. And then work yourself backward so that the decisions you make going forward, you can align them. They're not going to be perfect. So you may have to like go off over here for a little bit and go sideways for a little bit before you can, get up again, right? Whether it's you got to do something, in your business yourself that only you can do for a certain period of time until you hit this trigger point where you can get somebody else to do that. Right. So you might have some of those moments. You're building again. You're starting off. So it's fine. It's totally fine. And then you're going to start making decisions that align with where you want to go. And you're going to get the best clients that you can. And you're going to optimize your rates that you charge. You're going to get the right people, to help you. You're going to talk to your team members and have them be part. You're going to cast the vision, but you're going to have them be part of like understanding them and where they want to go, what they want to do in the business and what's possible for you all, so that they can be part of this energy, right? That's building toward what you ultimately desire. And so I see this as like a lot of people that we talk to, whether it's here on the Forge or in ISI or even just out in the world. We were at a summit event, which was like a 48-hour mastermind deep dive event this last weekend. Big A and I we got to host that. It was fantastic. And in that, right, it's like, it's so easy to think, okay, today I want to turn the switch from being a business having a high-paying job to being a business owner. I just want to turn that switch. Like, I'm going to go in and turn the switch, and it's just going to be that way tomorrow. And that's actually not how it works. Like, even in Brett's business, this is really interesting. He was using his business as kind of an example of how he's evolving over time, where he's built an excavation business and he was all in all the time up until, I don't know how many years it's been, a couple of years, whatever, where he has started, he's never going to be out of it. Like, even in the working genius that he took, one of the things I love, you need to do the working genius because it tells you how you thrive at work. That's all it is. It's not personality test. It's not none of that. It's literally how you thrive at work. And it identifies 3 stages of work. And so where you're working genius, and then you have competencies, things you're able to do, but necessarily don't you enjoy. And then you actually have frustrations. And so when you identify those and you start looking at your goals and things you want to accomplish, align with your values, and then you start guiding that decisions, you're guiding it all within, I love what Anthony was saying, the rails. Like, what do I get to enjoy, what I want to enjoy, but yet I'm making sure that I'm staying in some guidelines so that I don't become the complete, I want to use the word, I forget what somebody else used for you, a squirrel. I say renegade. Like, I don't see you as like a little bit of a renegade, right? I want to do it different, man. But you need some guidelines because there are things that, just like in Brett's business, there's some things in his excavation business that his COO or his integrator are really not going to do well, that maybe if you look at the standard integrator that they might do, but his business is unique enough because he has some really cool skill sets that he can shore up other people in his business and he enjoys doing them. And so that could be you in your business. So I would encourage you to like take the frameworks off the table in terms of like every example that you've seen, not frameworks, take the comparison off the table as far as what you should be and define what you want it to be and allow God to direct you with the talents and abilities and resources and all of that to help guide you into this over the coming, weeks and months and years. Because you've got what it takes, brother. Like you do. The fact that you've gotten here, you're still alive, and you're still able to charge somebody hundreds of dollars per hour, like that just freaking blows my mind, honestly. But way to go.
The thing I don't want to miss, David, is, and we haven't even talked about this, is how do you bring God into your business? And the sense of satisfaction that God can use your business and you as a vessel to reach people. So I honestly didn't do that for probably 10 years. And there's so much into that. And really seeking out prayer and what does God have for you and for this business, and what plan does he have? Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but what plan does he have for you? And I think about, there's a specific reach with a specific person that you can communicate with that we can't. And for me, that's guys in the construction industry. So how does this become a gift that God give me to be able to do construction, but use it to glorify and honor him and reach people through this business? So I would encourage you. You said a lot about putting God first and you and your wife, and that's awesome. I'm super proud of you. But I would seek that also, the same thing, and putting God first in your business.
David, earlier, Wally was talking about you're starting over, and in no way take that as a negative. It's very positive. It's very exciting because you get to cast a vision of exactly what you want it to look like. So it doesn't have to conform to conventional methods. As Wally said, use that renegade hat, say, hey, I'm going to do it my way, right? I'm going to do it the way I want to, and build and reverse engineer it and go back and say, in order to do that, these are the people, this is the life that I want. This is what I want out of the marriage, with my marriage partner. This is what we want together. And you get to create it. You get to design exactly what it is that you're wanting to do. And that allows for that creativity that you said you desire in starting this new thing, whatever that is. I would encourage you strongly, and it's your decision, obviously, as we kind of start to wrap up, is that as you get a little bit older, I'm a few years your senior, you want to create something that will create perpetual, revenue. You're going to get tired of exchanging your time for money. I'm just telling you, if you're not already tired, you'll become tired of that. And you're going to want more time freedom as you get a little bit older, with the grandkids, as your kids get older. And so I really would put a lot of focus and energy in that if I were you. I'm not suggesting that you need to do that, but I would love to see you do that because of all the benefits that accompany owning a business rather than a high-paying job.
I agree with you. That's one of the things that really resonated well with me when I sat down with my ISI guys and did just the financial worksheet, the one pager. And when it came to business value, I put 0 because my business right now has 0 value, none. Nobody's going to buy it. It's not sellable. It's not really a business. It's just my job. And so there's a massive part of me that wants to create. That's another reason I want to go create a business. It's got to be missional, Brett. I love the challenge and the call to seek the Lord to see how I can uniquely use my business and the opportunities there, how He would have me do that. And it has been a good analogy. I'm doing that a lot in my family, in my marriage right now. But there's a part of that big A is right now my real estate investments are the only things that are really adding value to my net worth and portfolio, things like that. So I'm going to continue that, but I would love to do it on the business side too. And the only way to do that is to create something that operates without me. I can add to it, but it's got to operate even if I'm not there. And so that's something whatever I'm going to do, if it's in law or elsewhere, and I would love for it to be in law for a lot of the things we've talked about. It's got to be a model that I can start pulling myself out more and more and more and just be there for the things I love to do, that I uniquely am gifted to do, and that I accelerate the business on. That's my vision or my dream. That would be my dream, is that.
You can do it.
Yeah.
I'm very confident. You're very smart, and you're a person of faith. And I remember hearing Billy Graham say that the biggest revival the country's ever going to see is when businessmen take their profession into the marketplace. When they take the ministry into the marketplace, that's when it's going to happen. And I know that's a deep desire for you. You voiced it many, many times on this Forge episode that your faith is very important to you. But what's so exciting, I get excited thinking about the opportunity that you have to create exactly what it is that you want to do.
What is the current mission of your business, David? Because you'd mentioned a model you tried to create before. What is the current mission of your business?
I haven't written a new mission for my business, honestly. This, the old mission, while it's great on one hand, it does not need to be the mission of my business.
Yeah, you would. I agree, because you would attract the wrong people.
That's right.
They don't want to be just like you, and you don't need more people like you.
That's
right
right.
now, that's a good word.
So there's a whole lot for me right now that I love. There's a part of me, Kevin, when you said, hey, I get to start all over. There is an aspect of that big A that's just depressing, because I ran hard for 3 years building something that ultimately was not the best model. But there's a part of me right now that I'm in such a good place in my walk with the Lord. I'm getting in such a good place with my marriage to where I feel supported so much by her. And again, the order of operation, I'm building things in the right order so that as I shift towards my business and finances and things like that, which are important, but not the top priority for me, as I build everything else, I'm anxious and excited about starting new, honestly, on the business front in the right order.
Well, you've learned how not to do it.
Yeah.
You know exactly the things that you shouldn't do. And I can even see it in your demeanor. You're much more calculated. You're much more in alignment with your spouse. You have your priorities in the right order. And I think God's going to bless that without a question if you just seek that counsel from Him and implement that strategy. And it's going to be something amazing. Even, here's the thing, we do things, they don't work. You learn, you pivot, you redo. And you can't give up. You're not a quitter. You're not going to stop. You're going to keep going because you've got great value to add. So, hey, as we end up today, any final comments or thoughts for David as we've met here today? We're talking about whether he should build a plan to either transition out of law entirely or whether he should convert his now law job into a thriving business. And David, as these guys finish up at the conclusion of whatever they got to say, I want you to give me what you think is your next right steps. What do you think you should take away from this today and go forward? So, roundtable discussion. Anybody else got anything they want to add or encourage David with?
I do, David. So last fall, I went through a process, and I always wrote vision for my business before I wrote it for myself. And I'll send you mine. And I would strongly encourage you to sit down as a family and write a full family vision and let your business come out of that. Because what I will do is build my business vision, and then my family gets drugged behind that. And then write your business vision out of that. And recently at the summit with these guys, I left with everything that I need to say no to. And we go to all this stuff, and and we end up saying yes to everything. And then literally we were saying no to something else. So in that, I'd love to see you write out what you're going to say no to so you can say yes to the things that you want to do.
I got a couple things, David. Kevin was talking about reinvention, and I think reinvention is the right word. I don't think it's starting over. I believe it's reapplying. Here would be my thought process for that on you, though. As you do reinvention, the movement and the most comfortable place for you to be is going to be back to what has worked in the past. And what has worked in the past is actually going to get you what you have now or what you got in the past. And so you're going to have to continually fight against what is comfortable and what is natural. And that might take, hey, I went back to that thing over there because that was easiest because right now I'm under stress, I'm under pressure. You're going to have to fight against that. Specifically, some of the things that you mentioned, fear, failure, not being good enough, family, depressive symptoms and aspirations, those things are going to come in and say, hey, this is what's happening. And you're going to say, well, this is the path of least resistance because path of least resistance is where I feel the safest. And quite often, it's not the safest place. And in in respects to business here, it's going to be the more dead end location for you. My piece of advice is I don't think you should be a lawyer because I don't think you thrive as a lawyer. I think you could do law work, which is what a lot of what we've been talking about. I think you die as a lawyer. Like I think you shrivel up and die as the guy that has to do, and I'm categorizing law as the guy that has to sit down and read all the books and make sure that it's right and write all the right papers. I think you shrivel up and die as that guy. And then my final thought, I was recently man in the middle of my group. And one of the guys said to me, he said that it was, I got to look how many words it is. He said 4 words. He said, there is another way. He said, you have to figure out there is another way. I trade time for dollar all the time. And he said, there is another way. He's like, I don't know what it is. He's like, there is another way. And so that's where I would say, don't let the industry that you're in be the guardrails that you sit in. Bring other industries into it. I'm in the medical model and I'm like, well, there's not another way. Medical model goes this way. You can't. Well, there's a little bit of truth there, but there's a lot of room for flexibility and application. And so take those things that you say, we can't do that and say, no. How can we do that? What's the way? I think that's going to show you, I think that type of creativity is actually going to make you thrive.
David, you're 43 years old. I know that seems like you're old. You're not.
No, Kevin, that's young. He's young.
I just want you to know that, brother. Like 43 is young. And man, I can tell you that if I think about 43, if I think I'm going to be 51 next week. So I think about the last 8 years, right? If I were to go back 8 years ago for where I was 8 years ago to what God's blessed and allowed me to experience over an 8-year period, it's way beyond the story I wrote. And you don't know what he's going to do in 3 years. You don't know what he does in 5 or 10 or 8 years. Mm-hmm. But Proverbs 69 says, man makes his plans and God directs his steps. And so make your plans. Don't worry feeling like you're behind. You're not. Just make your plans, seek God's direction, get good counsel, and just be willing to do the work and enjoy the freedoms and the opportunities God gives you as you continue in that pursuit.
Yeah, David, thank you so much for coming and being so vulnerable today. Brett, thank you. And Anthony and Wally, you guys have added immense value, I know, to David's life. And I'm excited, David, at this point in the episode, what do you feel is the one or two takeaway steps that we can hold you accountable to over a period of time to head you down the right path?
Biggest takeaway is honestly giving myself a little bit of permission to see my gifts and strengths in the business world and profession and really dial in on that. Things like working genius and some other things I've noted on here. I think to really take an assessment and get really clear on what those things are. And I want to give myself permission to throw out everything I've done in the past. That's been hard for me to do. But I think I've got to do that. Let all of that go and start anew by assessing what it is my strengths are. And Brett, I love the thought of my wife and I right now we were away, just the two of us this weekend. We're doing that every other month right now for this year. And we sat down for hours dreaming and not necessarily writing a family mission, but dreaming and prioritizing and talking through the priorities of what we want for ourselves and our family while our kids are still here. What can we pour into them? And I love the thought of letting a new, fresh business vision flow out of some of that, because that's invigorating. It's life-giving. It's energizing. It's mission-minded for me. So I think those are two of my biggest takeaways and steps are take an assessment of my gifts, talents, traits, and continue on the family vision and build my business vision out of that.
David, thank you for being here today in the Forge. We're just so excited to see what the future is going to hold. Some of you are listening to this episode right now and you're putting yourself in David's position. You're thinking, is it something that I should do to exchange the high-paying job I currently have for a business? And so I would just encourage you to dive into that, to think through it, use some of these practical applications that we've laid out today to help you solve that problem for yourself. And the reason we want you to do that is so that you too can have that view from the top.
Hey, everybody, as we close out today's episode, again, I just want to thank David and Anthony and Brett and even Big A, man, for bringing the Forge episode today. I know we've gotten great feedback from this. And so thank you for listening today. A way to continue the conversation here is actually over in our LinkedIn Christian Business Owners group. You can easily get to that by going to viewfromthetop.com/group, and that'll redirect you over there where you can easily just hit join, answer a couple questions, and dive into the continuing conversation we're having over there about things just like David's going through and other things that we as Christian businessmen go through on a daily basis. So we hope to see you there. Until next time, have a great week.